Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment purposes.
A simple live TV question changed everything. Smiles faded, voices tightened, and the whole studio went silent. What happens when a global pop icon walks onto daytime television expecting a routine interview, only to find himself fighting to hold back tears in front of millions? The lights inside the View studio glowed bright and warm, but there was something sharp in the air that morning. The audience clapped as Justin Bieber walked out, dressed in a simple oversized sweater and loose pants, his expression calm, but not carefree. He waved politely. Across the table sat the panel, Joy leaning forward with curiosity, Sunny adjusting her cards, and at the center, steady and observant, Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi gave him a measured smile. "Justin, welcome back." "Thank you," Justin replied softly, his voice lower than fans were used to hearing in concert arenas. This wasn't a stadium. This was a table. And at this table, there was nowhere to hide. The first few minutes were safe. Talk about his new music. Growth. Marriage. Faith. He answered thoughtfully, even warmly. "I'm in a different place now," he said. "I've made mistakes. I've grown. I'm trying to live with intention." The audience murmured approvingly. But Whoopi tilted her head slightly. "And when you say mistakes, Justin," she asked evenly, "do you think the public has truly seen accountability, or just reinvention?" The studio shifted. It was subtle, but it was there. The question wasn't hostile. It was surgical. Justin blinked. I've tried to be honest," he answered carefully. "People watched me grow up. I didn't always handle that well." Joy jumped in, lighter tone. "But that's part of fame, right? You were a kid." Sunny nodded. "Still, fame doesn't excuse behavior." The tension sharpened. Whoopi folded her hands. "You were arrested. You had public outbursts. There were moments where people felt disappointed, even hurt. Why should they believe this version of you is different?" Justin's jaw tightened for a split second. It was almost imperceptible, but the camera caught it. "I don't expect anyone to just believe me," he said. "I just hope they can see that I'm trying." Inside, something flickered behind his eyes. Not anger, not defensiveness. Something closer to exhaustion. Whoopi didn't look away. "Trying isn't always enough for the people who were impacted," she said calmly. The audience grew quiet. The applause sign wasn't flashing now. This was unscripted territory. Justin shifted in his seat. "You're right," he admitted. "Trying doesn't erase what happened." There it was, vulnerability cracking through. But Whoopi leaned forward slightly. "So what does accountability look like to you, Justin? Is it an apology? Is it stepping away? Is it charity? Or is it something else?" He swallowed. For a moment, he looked down at his hands. Millions watching. Cameras inches from his face. Every micro-expression broadcast in HD. "You know," he began, voice wavering slightly. "When you're 19 and the whole world is screaming your name, and you don't know who you are yet, you make decisions trying to feel something real." The audience stilled. "I hurt people," he continued. "Not intentionally. But I did." Sunny's expression softened. "But what hurt me most," Justin said, his voice lowering, "was feeling like I was drowning, and the world wanted front row seats." A ripple moved through the room. Whoopi's face remained composed, but her tone shifted, less sharp, more probing. "Are you saying the public is responsible for your behavior?" "No," Justin said quickly. "I'm saying, I was a kid, and instead of someone pulling me aside, I was headline after headline." Joy interjected gently. "Fame can amplify your worst moments. But it doesn't create them," Whoopi replied. And there it was, the clash. Justin's eyes glistened slightly under the lights. "I never said it did," he said quietly. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that makes an audience forget to breathe. Whoopi's voice softened, but only slightly. "Then help us understand. Because a lot of young fans looked up to you. Some still do." That landed. Justin inhaled deeply. "I know," he said. "And that's what keeps me up at night." The vulnerability was no longer subtle. He wasn't promoting an album anymore. He was standing trial in the court of public perception. "I've gone to therapy," he said. "I've worked on myself. I've apologized privately to people I hurt. Not for headlines. Not for press." A faint tremor edged into his voice. "And sometimes it feels like no matter what I do, I'll always be the kid who messed up." A few audience members nodded sympathetically. Whoopi watched him closely. "Redemption," she said slowly, "is a powerful word in America. But it's earned. Justin looked up at her directly now. Eye contact. No shield. I'm earning it, he said. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't loud. It was raw. Sunny leaned in. Have you forgiven yourself? That question pierced differently. Justin hesitated. I'm trying to, he admitted. His fingers interlocked tightly. Some days I wake up and I feel like I've grown. Other days, I still hear the headlines in my head. The room was quiet enough to hear the faint hum of studio equipment. Whoopi's voice lowered. What do they say? Justin let out a shaky breath. They say I'm a disappointment. The word hung there. And for the first time since he walked onto that stage, his composure faltered. His eyes brimmed. The audience gasped softly. Whoopi's expression changed, just slightly. The steel softened. Justin, she said gently, no one is just one mistake. But he shook his head faintly. It wasn't just one. And in that moment, the bright, polished talk show transformed into something else entirely. Not a performance, not a press tour, but a confrontation with the past, with perception, and with a host who refused to let easy answers slide. The cameras zoomed in. Justin blinked rapidly, trying to steady himself. But the emotion was rising now. And this was only the beginning. The tremor in Justin's voice didn't go unnoticed. Cameras lingered on the subtle quiver of his lips, the tight clench of his jaw, and the shadow of tears threatening to spill. The audience, initially polite and restrained, now leaned forward in unison, everyone sensing the shift from casual interview to raw confession. Whoopi folded her hands and spoke with a measured calm that only amplified the tension. You say you've changed, Justin. But change is messy. Redemption is messy. And the public, well, they want to see that mess laid bare. Justin swallowed hard, staring down at his hands. I know, he whispered. I've faced it every day. Every headline. Every video. Every tweet. I feel it. I feel like it's never ending. Joy reached out slightly, voice soft, trying to bridge the intensity. It's not just about headlines, Justin. It's about the people who looked up to you, the ones you hurt. Are you ready to take responsibility for that? Truly. He nodded, voice catching. I've tried. Every day. But sometimes, it's hard to see past the shame. Hard to believe that people will ever forgive me. Sunny leaned forward, eyes searching his face. And do you forgive yourself? She asked again, this time with more insistence. The tension between her question and his hesitation was palpable, like electricity in the air. Justin's gaze flicked up at her, voice trembling. I want to. I really do. But there are nights when I can't. I hear my mistakes over and over. And the worst part, I don't just hear the mistakes, I feel them. Deeply. Every day. A murmur ran through the audience, sympathetic yet uncomfortable. There was no laughter here, no applause. This was something heavier. Something real. Whoopi leaned closer, the corners of her mouth barely lifting. Justin, people are complex. Mistakes are part of being human. But when you're a public figure, your life is under a microscope. You have to show the world the work, the growth. Not just tell them about it. He nodded, swallowing. I've been trying. Therapy. Support groups. Talking to people I've wronged. But it's slow. And sometimes I feel like the more I try, the more I'm reminded of the past. Joy's voice softened, almost conspiratorial. That's real, though, Justin. That's the truth. Nobody expects perfection. But they do expect honesty, and you're giving them that now. Justin's eyes flickered with gratitude, but it was brief. The weight of the conversation pulled him back under. I wish people could see me beyond the mistakes. That they could see the person I'm trying to become. Sometimes, it feels like I'll never get there. Whoopi studied him carefully, the pause stretching across the table like a held breath. Maybe the question isn't whether they see you now, she said slowly. Maybe it's whether you see yourself. Can you look in the mirror and recognize the person you're becoming? He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, they shimmered. Some days, yes. Some days, not at all. The audience shifted, collectively caught in the pull of the moment. This wasn't just a celebrity grappling with fame. It was a human grappling with himself, and the entire room felt the intensity. Sunny's voice cut through the quiet. Justin, crying isn't weakness. Acknowledging your pain isn't weakness. You're showing courage right now. A tear slipped down Justin's cheek. He hastily wiped it, but it had already been captured by the cameras. The audience stirred audibly, a mix of empathy and astonishment filling the room. I hate that it feels like I have to justify my feelings, Justin admitted, voice trembling. Like the world expects me to be invincible. But I'm not. I never was. And being in this spotlight, it only makes the loneliness louder. Joy leaned in closer. It's okay to feel lonely, Justin. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Whoopi's eyes softened, a rare moment of gentleness breaking through her usual sharpness. We all mess up. We all hurt people. But you're facing it. That counts for something. Justin nodded, shoulders slumping slightly. I just hope it counts for enough. That someday, people will understand that I'm not the person I was. A hush fell over the studio. Even the crew behind the cameras seemed frozen. The confrontation wasn't hostile anymore. It was intimate, fragile, and undeniable. Then, with a faint quiver in his voice, Justin spoke again. I want to be better. I want to make amends. But the weight, sometimes it's unbearable. And yet, I keep trying. The audience, once quiet, now erupted into murmurs and soft applause. Not for spectacle, not for performance, but for authenticity, for the courage it takes to face your mistakes on a live stage. Whoopi leaned back, letting the weight of the moment settle. Justin, your journey isn't over. It's just messy. And that's okay. Messy is real. Justin nodded again, swallowing hard. Messy, yes. Real. That's exactly it. And with that, the first barrier had broken. The tension remained, heavy in the air, but now there was a subtle shift. From confrontation to connection. From judgment to understanding. But the deeper conflicts, the guilt, the shame, the public perception, still lingered. The tearful admission was just the opening act. The storm was far from over. Justin's voice still shook as he tried to gather himself, but the cameras didn't flinch. Every micro-expression, every subtle tremor, was being broadcast into millions of homes. The audience was silent, hanging on each word, aware that what was unfolding wasn't scripted or rehearsed. It was raw human emotion exposed under glaring studio lights. Whoopi leaned in, her tone deceptively calm, piercing through the vulnerability. Justin, you talk about trying, about therapy, about making amends. But let's be honest. How often does trying become enough? How do we know that this isn't just another chapter of a public persona designed to look good? Justin exhaled shakily, the weight of her words pressing on him. It's not a performance, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I'm tired of performing. I want to be seen for who I am, for the real me. Not the headlines, not the scandals. The real me. Sunny tilted her head, probing gently. And who is the real Justin? Can you even define that for yourself right now? He swallowed, the question cutting deep. I don't know. Some days I feel like I do. Some days I don't. But I do know I'm learning. That I'm trying to grow into someone better than the kid who made mistakes under the spotlight. Joy's voice softened, trying to bridge the chasm between the celebrity and the human in front of her. Growth isn't linear, Justin. Nobody expects you to have all the answers. But admitting that you're unsure, that's part of accountability. Justin nodded, a faint quiver in his lips. I'm not proud of the mistakes. I've hurt people. I've hurt myself. And sometimes, facing it feels like reliving the pain over and over. But I have to. Otherwise, I can't change. Whoopi's gaze sharpened again, not in accusation, but in insistence. Pain is unavoidable, Justin. But empathy, that's earned. People have watched your journey, and some still don't trust it. You think they do, but do you really? The tension in the studio thickened. Even the audience held their breath. Justin's eyes welled with tears again. I don't know if they do. And I can't control that. I want them to see that I'm human. That I can learn. That I can feel remorse. That I can love myself enough to do better. Sunny leaned forward, voice trembling slightly with emotion. Do you realize what you're saying right now? That's courage. That's facing your demons in front of the world. Not just hiding behind PR statements or music videos. Justin's hands trembled on the table. I'm scared, he admitted. I'm scared people will never forgive me. Scared that they'll only see the mistakes, not the effort. And scared that I'll never be able to reconcile who I was with who I want to be. Joy placed a hand lightly on the table, as if to reach out to him, though distance and cameras kept them separate. Fear is human. Facing it is strength. You're doing it right now, Justin. That matters. A hush spread across the audience. This was no longer an interview. It was a confessional, a reckoning. Cameras zoomed in on the glistening tears running down Justin's face. For a fleeting moment, the world outside, tweets, headlines, social media critiques, disappeared. All that remained was this moment, raw and unfiltered. Whoopi leaned back slightly, allowing the tension to breathe. People will forgive. Some will never forget. That's life. But the fact that you're sitting here, admitting your pain, and taking responsibility, that's what changes perception over time. Justin's lips trembled as he whispered, I hope so. I don't want to be remembered for my mistakes. I want to be remembered for growth. For love. For trying. The audience murmured softly, a collective acknowledgement of the vulnerability on display. The applause was tentative, reflective, an acknowledgement of courage rather than entertainment. Sunny's eyes glimmered with emotion. You're showing a side of yourself that's rarely visible. That's the Justin people don't see, the one who struggles, who cries, who reflects. That honesty, that's real. Justin looked down, voice breaking. I'm trying to be that person every day. But it's exhausting. And some days, I can't keep it together. Whoopi's voice softened now, almost a whisper. And that's okay, Justin. You don't have to be perfect. You have to be willing to show up, even when it's messy. That's what makes it meaningful. A tear slipped down his cheek, and he didn't reach to wipe it away. For the first time, he surrendered fully to the moment, the vulnerability, the confrontation. The cameras captured everything. The audience felt it. And the world was watching a pop icon not perform, but humanize. Justin exhaled deeply, trying to gather composure. I hope I can keep doing better. Not for the headlines. Not for anyone else. For me. And maybe for the people I hurt along the way. Whoopi leaned forward slightly, eyes locking with his. Then keep going. Keep showing up. That's the hardest part, and the part that matters most. Justin nodded, a fragile smile breaking through the tears. The audience exhaled collectively, the tension easing slightly, but the weight of honesty and accountability still lingered. The stage had shifted completely. From confrontation to confession. From judgment to understanding. But the story was far from over. The storm of public scrutiny, personal reflection, and the delicate dance between fame and humanity was only gathering momentum. Justin took a shaky breath, realizing he had shared more than he had intended, but also feeling the strange relief of truth told, tears faced, and vulnerability unveiled. This was the turning point, the emotional apex that left everyone in the room, hosts, audience, and viewers alike, breathless, waiting for what would come next. The studio lights seemed sharper now, almost too bright, reflecting off the glassy sheen in Justin's eyes. The weight of the conversation had pulled him into a place of raw openness, a vulnerability that the cameras and audience were unwilling to blink through. It was no longer a simple interview. It had become a reckoning, a confrontation with himself and the world at once. Whoopi leaned back in her chair, folding her hands, her gaze never leaving him. Justin, the thing about fame is that it magnifies everything. Every mistake, every triumph, every moment of weakness, it's broadcast for millions to see. And sometimes, it becomes hard to know who you are underneath all of that scrutiny. Justin nodded slowly, voice tight. That's exactly it. I don't know if the person I see in the mirror is the same person people think they know. And the harder I try to fix it, the more I realize the world remembers the worst version of me. Joy's eyes softened, her voice almost a whisper. But that's not the whole story, Justin. The people who care, the fans who truly follow you, they see the effort. They see the growth. They see the human being behind the headlines. Justin's hand trembled slightly as he brushed it across his face. Sometimes it feels like I'm trapped between the person I want to be and the person everyone else expects me to be. And it's exhausting. Some days, I can barely breathe under the weight of it. Sunny leaned forward, intensity in her eyes. And yet here you are, sitting with us, speaking openly. That takes more courage than a performance on stage, Justin. More than any song or award. He let out a shaky laugh, humor hiding the ache beneath. Yeah, courage. That's one way to describe trying not to fall apart on live television. The audience chuckled quietly, but the tension remained. Cameras zoomed in, catching the subtle quiver in his lips, the way his shoulders slumped under invisible weight. Every frame told a story of someone who had been molded and battered by fame yet still searching for grounding in his own humanity. Whoopi's voice sharpened slightly, not in judgment, but in challenge. Justin, growth is one thing. Accountability is another. You've admitted to your mistakes, your pain, your fear. But what about those you've hurt directly? How do you face them? Not in front of cameras, but in real life. Justin's gaze dropped to the table, voice breaking. I've apologized. Privately. I've tried to make amends. But some things can't be fixed. And that haunts me. Every single day. Joy leaned closer, almost imperceptibly. Haunting is human. But avoidance doesn't help. Facing it, facing the guilt, facing yourself, is the only way forward. Justin exhaled slowly, the tremor in his chest audible. That's why these moments like this, they are terrifying. Because it's exposure. Full exposure. And sometimes, I feel like I'm still just a kid under all of this. Sunny's voice softened, encouraging but firm. Being a kid isn't an excuse, Justin. But being human is. And you're showing that. That counts for something. The room seemed to breathe with him, the audience collectively drawn into the intensity of the exchange. Cameras hovered, capturing the nuances. The tension in his jaw, the way his fingers twisted nervously, the brief flickers of self-doubt in his eyes. Whoopi leaned forward slightly, her tone measured, her eyes sharp but not unkind. Justin, everyone wants a simple narrative. The fallen star redeems himself. But life isn't simple. Redemption isn't a one-time act. It's repeated daily. Can you commit to that? To showing up, even when it's painful? Justin nodded, the edge of tears glistening in his eyes. I can try. I have to try. Because anything less would betray everything I've learned. Everything I care about. Joy's hand brushed over the table in a subtle gesture of support. Then keep trying. That's the part most people won't see. The persistence, the struggle. That's what matters in the long run. Justin's lips trembled, a fragile smile forming. Persistence, yeah. I never thought surviving fame would feel like this. But it does. And I guess, in a way, that struggle, it shapes me. Forces me to see who I am, flaws and all. Sunny's gaze softened, voice gentle. And it's okay to be flawed, Justin. Perfect doesn't exist. Realness does. Courage does. And that's what you're showing us right now. The tension in the room didn't dissipate entirely. It was replaced by something else, a raw, shared human moment. The cameras captured Justin's tear-streaked face, his tentative nods, his vulnerability laid bare. The audience murmured, caught between sympathy, awe, and respect for the courage it takes to confront one's demons live on national television. Whoopi's voice, calm but unwavering, sealed the moment. This is life, Justin. Messy, complicated, unrelenting. And yet, you're here. You're facing it. That's what counts. That's what makes a difference. Justin swallowed hard, voice breaking with sincerity. I'll keep facing it. I have to. For me, and maybe, for those I've hurt. Maybe that's enough. I don't know if it is, but it's all I've got. A quiet reverence filled the room. The moment hung, suspended between vulnerability and understanding, between accountability and forgiveness, leaving everyone in the studio, including the millions watching at home, utterly captivated. And in that fragile silence, the storm of judgment, public expectation, and personal reckoning had not ended. It had merely entered its final act. The studio felt heavier now, as if the air itself had thickened with the weight of the conversation. Justin's shoulders slumped slightly, but there was a steadiness in his gaze, a fragile resilience forming amidst the tremors of emotion. The audience was completely silent, witnessing something rare, a pop icon stripped of all pretense, exposing not only his past mistakes but the raw human vulnerability behind the headlines. Whoopi leaned in one final time, her voice calm yet firm, carrying the weight of judgment and understanding simultaneously. Justin, what you've shared today, it's not just for the cameras. It's not just for the public. It's for you. Every tear, every confession, it's part of the process. But let me ask you one last time. Are you ready to carry this forward? To keep facing yourself, your actions, and the consequences? Justin exhaled slowly, hands resting on the table as he collected himself. The tremor in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. I am, he said softly, almost as if speaking to himself. It's terrifying. Some days I'll fail. Some days I'll fall back into old patterns. But I can't stop trying. I won't stop. Joy nodded, voice gentle, almost reflective. That's all anyone can ask for. That's what makes you human and honest. Sunny leaned forward slightly, her eyes steady on him. And it's important for your fans to see this. To see that even someone at the top, someone who's been idolized, struggles, stumbles, and still chooses to try. That's a message they need. Justin's lips quivered, and the tears returned briefly, glistening under the studio lights. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back, but the emotion was undeniable. I hope people understand. That they see this side of me. The side that's not perfect, but is real. That's all I've ever wanted, to be real. Whoopi's voice softened, almost imperceptibly. And being real is brave, Justin. Braver than any award, any hit song, any headline. It's not easy to admit when you're afraid, when you've hurt people, when the world expects you to be invincible. But here you are. And that counts. The audience, after holding their collective breath for what felt like an eternity, finally began to stir. Applause started quietly, then grew, respectful and measured. Not for spectacle, but for courage, authenticity, and vulnerability displayed live on air. Cameras panned across the crowd, capturing faces filled with empathy, admiration, and surprise. Justin leaned back slightly, shoulders heavy but heart lighter. "Thank you," he whispered, "for letting me speak. For letting me be human today." Whoopi gave a small nod, her expression a mix of stern acknowledgement and soft encouragement. "Remember, Justin, it doesn't end here. Growth, accountability, redemption, they are lifelong journeys. But every step you take, every moment of honesty, it builds. And one day, it'll be seen for what it truly is." The hosts allowed a brief pause, giving space for the weight of the moment to settle. Then, with careful deliberation, the cameras zoomed in on Justin one last time, capturing the raw, unfiltered emotion etched into his face. He looked exhausted, yet resolute, a young man who had faced the past and chosen to confront it publicly, even when it hurt. As the applause continued, Justin smiled faintly, a fragile yet genuine curve of relief breaking through the tears. The audience's reaction wasn't just to the fame, the music, or the stardom. It was to the courage it took to be honest, to admit vulnerability, and to face both the judgment and empathy of millions. Outside the studio, social media exploded. Clips of Justin's tearful admission went viral, trending worldwide. News outlets dissected every word, analyzing his honesty, his remorse, and his emotional bravery. Fans flooded Twitter and Instagram with messages of support, empathy, and admiration. "He's human," one post read. "Finally, he's showing the world he's human." Another declared, "This is the real Justin we needed to see." The story dominated headlines for days, sparking conversations about fame, accountability, and the public's relationship with celebrities. Pundits debated the impact of vulnerability in a world obsessed with perfection. Meanwhile, Justin retreated quietly, reflecting, learning, and continuing the journey he had laid bare on national television. And though criticism lingered in corners of the internet, the overwhelming response was one of respect and understanding. Justin's moment of raw honesty had pierced through the spectacle of celebrity, creating a powerful cultural conversation about growth, redemption, and humanity. As the studio lights dimmed and the credits rolled, one thing was clear. This confrontation would be remembered, not for scandal, not for performance, but for courage. For the bravery of a young man willing to show his flaws, face his past, and declare, in front of the world, that he would continue to try. Now it's your turn. What do you think about Justin's tearful confrontation with Whoopi Goldberg? Was it genuine? Was it a turning point?